what's your revenue first? Revenue is 95. Asset value, 4 tools, 20% depreciation times 0.8. Value of the tools, 95. That's equal to a bit of mental arithmetic for you to do. $399. Do you take the loan? No. You took the loan before when the interest rate was 5% and you weren't expecting deflation. The interest rate is still 5%. You now expect deflation. You no longer want to take the loan. So you can see straight away that the term in the Fisher equation that connects nominal and real interest rates, expected inflation, deflation as it is here, that does matter for investment decisions. So knowing the nominal interest rate alone is not sufficient to work out whether businessmen will want to invest or not. Now, in this situation, suppose the fact that businessmen stop investing is considered a problem. Demand is too low. Is there anything the central bank can do to make this craftsman willing to invest? What could the central bank try to do to get the craftsman or any of the businessmen like him to go on investing? To decrease interest rates. What's the lowest you can go? 0. So what's the best position, what's the best case scenario for how much you repay? You repay $420 if the interest rate is 5%. How much do you repay if the interest rate is 0%? 400. So you could slash the interest rate all the way to 0, but the lowest possible amount this craftsman would ever have to repay is $400. If he needs $400 now, he can't borrow at a negative nominal interest rate. He's always going to have to repay at least $400. Yet, as you can see, if the price of what he's selling is expected to fall, it can work out to be the case that if he was fairly close to the margin of investing to begin with, this can tip him over the edge in terms of not starting his business or not expanding his business, even if the central bank was to cut interest rates to 0. So at 0 interest rates, you'd repay 400. But even that's still too much. So that's why this example is why many central bankers fear the 0 lower bound. If you have a situation like this where people think prices are going to fall, it can be hard for the central bank to persuade people to go on spending. Firms would cut back on investment. Now, what's all this got to do with the real interest rate, which is what I was claiming the point of this exercise was to do? Well, can you tell me what the implied real interest rate is in each of these situations? So start with the first example we did. Interest rate was 10%. Inflation expectations were 0. What was the real interest rate? 10%. And you didn't invest in that case. So our very first example was 10% real. That was example number 1. Example number 2 was no inflation or deflation, nominal rate of 5%. What's the real rate? 5%. 5% real. third case was 5% nominal, 5% deflation. What's the real rate? 10%. And now you can see why, in that case, the craftsman didn't invest. It's basically for the same reason he didn't invest to begin with, when the interest rate was 10% real. It doesn't matter. If you work through the maths of this very carefully, you'll see that it doesn't really matter whether it's the nominal interest rate that raises the real rate, or whether it's expected deflation that raises the real rate. It's ultimately the real rate that's governing the decision. In the final case, you're back to 5% real. Now you might think, why is that not enough to get investment going? Well, the Fisher equation is actually only an approximation. You can see you're very, very close to it. It's 400 versus 399. So you're only $1 away from persuading him to invest. But you could not get the real rate any lower than this. That's the problem for the central bank, the zero lower bound. Okay, let me give you a break to absorb this before we finish off this question. So we'll resume